The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
In the Idaho Constitution, Article 1, Section 1, we have a right to life, we have a right to defend life.
This legislation is centered on meeting the needs of Idaho families.
And we have no way to maintain control over the spending of this program, and it will be a disaster for this state long term.
But we have a whole gamut of kids whose parents would like to do something for them and they cannot.
The courts have long held that our ability to transfer title on real property benefits society as a whole.
This is simply about putting it out of reach of young, innocent, vulnerable children and making our libraries and schools a safe place for them to go.
And I am increasingly frustrated that we cannot stop ourselves from drinking at the public trough.
He's sounding the alarm. He's saying if we don't address these issues, we potentially might have greater problems moving forward.
I feel like we're back to an unappointed board that gets to decide who is essential and who is non-essential.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
We're supposed to be bottom-up government. We're supposed to be representing my citizens' ideas and your citizens' ideas, and we're supposed to be discussing them and debating them to come to a conclusion.
And for me, it's about a couple things. It's about food security, it's about national security, and it's about preserving American exceptionalism.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
Welcome, everybody. It is March 14, 2024. March 14, 314, that's Pi Day for all you mathematicians out there who like to nerd out on that stuff. My name is Matt Edwards. Welcome to Idaho Signal. I am still in Boise, broadcasting now from my hotel room before I head back over to the Capitol. We have some good news. This morning in the House. Let's take a look at the House right now. They are currently voting on Senate Bill 1406. This is an appropriations bill. It looks like there's some negative votes there on how to spend some of your money, but that's the bill that they're on. And as they head to another appropriations bill, I'll let you know that earlier today, in the House Concurrent Resolution 35, which was the adoption of the Traditional Family Act, if you will, a celebration of Traditional Family Values Month, which would go from Mother's Day to Father's Day, a big, nice celebration of families, passes the House 59 to 10. 59 to 10. Every use that and that was along party lines there. There was one absent vote on the Democrat side, but that went all along party lines. And now House Concurrent Resolution 35 will move on to the Senate to be heard over there and voted upon. But I just want to remind you, regardless of whether or not this makes it through the Senate on the other side, that why don't we just start doing that ourselves? From Mother's Day to Father's Day, go to tradfam.org and learn all about this movement that if we can start it here in Idaho, will hopefully sweep across the country. Okay. And some other, I guess, dealing with public money, dealing with the madness that's going on yesterday. This morning, we got a couple of clips to show you about this morning. This morning, they were talking about public funds being used for sex change operations in the Senate State Affairs Committee. So we got an update for you on how that bill fared this morning in committee. That just wrapped. But yesterday, in an afternoon session, the library bill, a new library bill, this is like the fifth iteration, I think, House Bill 710, was up for debate in the House yesterday afternoon. And so I kind of want to go through some clips here and show you how that went down. There was a brief, during Representative Jaron Crane's opening remarks, his opening debate on this bill, he went through the history of how we got here. And you'll hear some other people reference that as well. So we're gonna cut into Jaron's opening debate here about halfway through and let him kind of explain the difference between this iteration of the library bill and what we've seen before. So and then we'll do some clips after that as well. So let's go ahead and cut to Jaron Crane's opening statement. This was yesterday in the House, on the House floor, House Bill 710, and here's Representative Jaron Crane.
So we have brought back House Bill 384. That was the bill, like I said, that we had introduced the second week of session that made it to the floor that we were ready to present. So this bill here, House Bill 710, is House Bill 384, but with a couple of modifications that have come out since Senate Bill 1289 failed. One of the things that my Senate counterpart brought forward, which was a great idea, was on this form, and I'll talk a little bit about the process and how this will work. There's a relocation form that you're going to have to fill out to request a piece of material to be moved. On that form, he wanted it to reference Idaho's current obscenity law, which is 1815-14. So how this will work is, if you had a patron walk into a library and you came across a piece of material that you were deemed harmful to minors by your opinion, you would go up to the librarian and have a conversation. And she might go ahead and he or she might move the book. If they don't, you would have to fill out a 30-day written relocation form. And on that form, you're going to have to reference how that piece of material violates Idaho Code 18-1514. And you turn it into them. They can then go ahead and relocate that material. If they fail to do so, and they have 30 days to take action on that, then you would have the ability to go to a civil cause of action in order to encourage them to relocate that book. What this bill actually is codifying a relocation policy. Some of these librarians and libraries have come forward and said, we already have a policy in place. And that's awesome, and we truly appreciate that. But not all of them do. So what we're doing in this legislation is codifying a relocation policy that they are all going to follow. So that is the 30-day relocation form. If you look at the legislation, it's on page 3, lines 6 through 20. That's the process of the relocation form. We have also lowered the damages from $2,500 to $250. So a substantial drop in the damages. And you'll notice Part B, this also came about after 1289, went down on the Senate side. This is going to be page 2, lines 13 through 16. Currently in Idaho statute, we have this Part B. What happens is we've never had Idaho Code 1815-14 challenged at the Supreme Court level. If this law is passed and it goes in, there is an organization in this state that plans to challenge this legislation at the Supreme Court level. In order to win that Supreme Court challenge, we need this gone. This goes above and beyond the Miller test. You've heard me talk a little bit about the Miller test. The Miller test is a universal U.S. Supreme Court standard that they use to determine obscenity in the United States. So everything we currently have in code right now will adhere to the Miller test. But this Part B goes beyond that, which means we would get thrown out at the Supreme Court level. So you'll see that part removed. The library group wanted us to make sure that we are emphasizing that the Miller test will be the standard by which we are judging what is obscene. In Idaho Code currently, if you'll look at page 1, that'll be line 38. You're going to see the words prurient interest of minors. That is prong 1 of the Miller test right there in Idaho Code. We are emphasizing that. 39, you're going to see contemporary community standards applied. That's also part of the Miller test. Line 42 on the same page, you're going to see patently offensive. That's prong 2 of the Miller test. If we turn over to page 2, you go down to lines 9 and 10, you're going to see considered as a whole. That is part of the Miller test. Line 10, it possesses serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value for minors. That is prong 3 of the Miller test. So their request was that we had the Miller test emphasized as the means by which a piece of material is judged or deemed harmful to minors. So we were able to go ahead and get all of those points made that were brought up as concerns. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I stand for question.
Okay, so there it was. Really got into the weeds there, but you know, this has been the big roadblock, is everybody with their own particular problems with the bills that have come before. And so, you know, you got to commend Representative Crane here for trying to address everybody's concerns. What's really frustrating, however, is we'll see in a clip later, is people then saying, "Oh, well, that really doesn't matter," you know, and that was, you know, the Miller test that's the law anyway. So, you know, I still don't like this bill. And throughout the debate, there were plenty of people that kept. You can never satisfy these people. They just want complete control. And so I want to highlight a couple of clips here from folks who understand the problem and who have come here to help solve the problem. And so let's go over to Representative Joe Alfieri. He's a friend of the program from Coeur d'Alene, District 4, and we have just a few short clips lined up from these folks. But let's hear from Representative Joe Alfieri first.
As the good gentleman from 12 has mentioned, we have been debating this bill, or some version of it, for over a year, and we've heard a great deal of testimony in committee on problems in libraries. I'm amazed to hear that people will still say that there are no problems in any of the libraries. We have had many people come down and testify in front of State Affairs and bringing books that are in libraries for which they have gone to libraries and protested the presence of these books and the distribution of these books to children. So to say that there are no problems, if you're in a district where there are no problems, you're fortunate. I will point out, if you're in a district where there are no problems, then this bill should not be an issue for you. I urge a green light.
Good. Hopefully you were able to hear. I apologize for some of these clips that we get when we're taking audio and video from the PBS output. That we don't have much control over those clips unless we run a huge, you know, post mixing process on them, which we're if we were doing a full on documentary that we could do a 2-hour program, a 2-hour full film on this, then we would have time to do that. But when we're moving on the fly like this, I apologize that you may have to turn up your volume, but that's the way it is. So bear with us here. We'll try and do our best as we move along here. Joe Alfieri's seatmate, Representative Elaine Price from the same district there, she offered her words, and so let's listen to that.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to debate the bill.
It has the floor to debate the bill.
We passed many bills in this chamber that affect one area and not another. So to use that as a reason not to support this bill just seems counterproductive to what we do. We take care of the whole state, and sometimes we take care of areas that are affected in one part of the state but not the other. This bill is addressing an issue that is prevalent in our area, so I would appreciate your green light.
And once again, you know, Representative Price has she has a knack for watching and comparing how people argue one bill and then they flip their argument on its head and then argue against their own principle over here and argue for it over here by saying, oh, we should just let this is a local issue. If it's only happening in your area, just leave it, let the locals happen there. But then when they want to pass a bill that would affect the entire state, even though it's only solving one problem over here, they're all for it. So it's very disingenuous when these folks use that argument all the time. And I commend Representative Price for pointing that out, especially because in this particular topic, it's happening in multiple places across the state, and it will only increase if we don't do anything about it. And so we commend Representative Price for that. Representative Tony Wisniewski, an eloquent statesman on his own right, stood up in favor of this debate from District 5, also in North Idaho. So let's listen to Representative Tony Wisniewski.
Mr. Speaker, to debate in favor of the bill.
The gentleman has the floor to debate the motion.
There have been two arguments that have been repeated, not just in this session, but for years, and I'd like to try and refute them. Number one, it's not happening in my district. When our family moved from Los Angeles to Kootenai, or to Cache County in the state of Utah, there had never been an armed robbery committed in that county. For the county representative to go down to the state legislature and argue, as some of us have, that it has never happened in my county, so therefore I'm not going to vote to make armed robbery illegal, is kind of a ludicrous argument, in my opinion. Secondly, it has been repeated that we are removing the rights of parents to have they make the decision as to what their children can read. That is patently false as well. Any parent can go into the adult section if the bill were to pass, remove any books they want, take them home, and give them to their kids to read. So there is no lack of freedom as far as what the children can read if the parents have the full knowledge and the consent to go into the library and get that material. So for those reasons, I would urge you to vote yes on this bill. Thank you.
And once again, I mean, hitting the nail right on the head. This is not a book ban. It is a, let's move this book from the child section to the adult section. You can still go over there and get the book for your child, if that's the case. So, you know, it's the arguments, they fall flat on their face. So Representative Wisniewski here. All right, so let's get into some of the opposition here. Representative Lori McCann, Republican, registered Republican out of District 6, had a question for Jaron Crane on a particular point in the bill. And so let's watch that exchange.
Does the gentleman yield to an additional question?
Sure.
Thank gentleman yields. Good lady from 6.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good gentleman. So my follow-up question deals with then after the 30 days, and you say that they can go to a cause of action. At what point does the prosecuting attorney or the attorney general have the opportunity to step in and ask for injunctive relief?
Young 12.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good lady from 6. We are going to have to see how that plays out and how that process goes. My hope in the relocation form, and again to go back over the purpose of this bill, is they can have the material. And that was what was discussed over the last several pieces of legislation. Are we banning books? Are we removing books? No, we're not. We're codifying a relocation policy. So just like we would have a romance section, we would have a fiction or a nonfiction section. They're just going to need to relocate the material to another section. So I hope that satisfies your questions.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, very good. Once again, that's the argument here, right? Okay, this debate was not without its fireworks. And you'd expect to hear them between maybe the Republicans and the Democrats, seeing as how this issue seems to fall along those lines. But here in Idaho, there's a lot of folks who register as Republicans. They win as Republicans, and they seem to fight the battles that Democrats usually fight for. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we will listen to McCann's argument. And then, or no, should we play that now? Let's play that now, and then we'll go to break. So we have time for that. So let's bring up again. Representative McCann then stood up to debate a little further on this. So let's play her clip, and then we'll take a break after that.
Against House Bill 314, and House Bill 710 is almost a carbon copy. There are a few things. The Miller test is the law, so whether it was in here or not, the Miller test has to apply based on our Supreme Court. So that is something that is already in law. I just still have some real concerns about us saying to parents, we are going to decide what your children can and can't read from the state level. And I have seen some of the materials. We have taken some of the materials out of context when we've read them, and folks have said that would be a book that we would not allow. And I would have questioned that, and so I appreciate that we now have codified again the Miller test. But what are we going to do with our small rural libraries that have one small room, 800 to 1,000 square feet, that has no ability to add a place for a new section, an adult section that has to be basically down in lock and key, and that they'd have to have somebody monitoring that. So I'm very concerned about that. I'm also concerned with the fact that we have a local library system. We have county commissioners. We have the ability. We've elected these people or they've been appointed. And so we are preempting, we are saying to them, we don't trust what you're doing. And some of these libraries, I know this has been a huge issue, and we all would like to see this dealt with. And I thought that I had a bill that I could get behind and say, okay, the librarians have gone neutral, but my librarians, I have gotten emails from them, from mine in my district and all over the state, asking us to please not tie their hands. Let them do their jobs. Let them look at these materials individually when parents come in. And my librarians have said, Lori, we've had very few challenges in 25 years. There's been very, very few challenges. And so, but we will take care of that, and we will either remove the book or put it in another section. I know that is what the good gentleman says we are trying to do here. But again, we have local boards, we have local folks that are in charge of this, school boards. And then another thing is, if this only dealt with schools, I think I could probably get behind it. But public libraries have a different standard by which they have to deal with the entire community. And so for that and many other reasons.
I've had enough. I can't get past. Oh, if this was just for schools, maybe I could get behind it. Like, I don't believe a word she says. I'm sorry, I don't believe a word she says. I don't. She sits here and says, "Oh, we know we got it." She's basically saying we need to trust the librarians. Oh, trust the librarians. Trust the librarians. She says that over here, but then she doesn't want to trust parents to if we want to give them a tax break to go give money, or we want to offer them the chance to spend money on schools. On alternative school other than public education. Oh, where's the oversight? Where's the we need to have government state-run oversight if we're going to give taxpayer money to parents to educate their kids. But over here, libraries, no, we should just let them do whatever they want. And what about these really tiny libraries? We got to put them under lock and key? Come on. She's so disingenuous. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Okay. I got one more clip here. It's a back-to-back clip. It's Representative Dale Hawkins, Representative Judy Boyle. And they rise to address some of these issues here. So let's listen to them.
The library in my town is about 800 to 1,000 square feet, and the answer is we move the material. Currently, you can't go in the library and get on the internet and access pornography or anything like that in a library. Currently, if a minor goes into a library, they cannot check out a movie that is R-rated if they are under the age of 18 years old. That's going on right now. But currently, as told to me by the librarian in my community, if someone goes to check out a book that she knows is terrible, according to library policy, not only can she not stop that, she's not even allowed to inform the parent of that process. And I'd like to deal with one other thing really short, if I may read from an article.
Asked to read from an article. Is there an objection?
Very shortly.
Hearing none, the good gentleman can read from it very shortly.
Thank you. This concept that there's no problem here. This is in the Review Journal. Kootenai County Sheriff Bob Norris said he was shocked and disturbed at some of the books available to youth at the local libraries. He's been hanging on to the copies. He'd rather pay for them than give them back. This is testimony by the sheriff of Kootenai County, the second largest county, I think, in our state. So this concept that it's not going on anywhere is simply not true, a false argument. If we care about our kids, the simple moving of material is the fix. This is an easy green light. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, gentlemen. Further debate on the motion. Good lady from 9.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To debate the bill.
Lady has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have probably one of the smallest libraries in the state. In my own hometown, 800 square feet. The librarian is one of my former 4-H kids. She was horrified to think that someone was spending taxpayer money for pornography to put in a library. We are not telling parents, we don't want your kids to read whatever you want them to read. If you want to go to an adult bookstore and buy your children this kind of garbage, we're not preventing that. But we should not be paying using taxpayer dollars for this and then taking the chance of other children seeing this kind of garbage. So I would urge your green vote. Thank you.
Garbage. Okay. I think both representatives, I mean, look, the debates on this stuff, the lines are clear. The lines are clear. You have folks who are standing up saying, what is wrong? They're either denying it. They're either like covering a blind eye, saying, this isn't happening. We don't even need to do any of this. We don't need to do any of this. And then there are those that say, well, you kind of have to look at it in context. You kind of you people have seen this material. You've seen the material. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing. I cannot believe we're here. Well, we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are going to show you another Republican who stood up and basically filibustered. He just went on and on and on. And this is where the fireworks happened. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. You don't want to miss this.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government and what we were tasked to do.
The dictionary defines a pledge as something that you give as a sign that you'll keep a promise. As Idahoans, that's what we're looking for in our elected leaders. A sign that they'll keep their word. Talk is cheap, and so are political promises, hidden agendas, and special interests. This is why we created the Citizens Alliance of Idaho Pledge, affirming the values Idahoans have been living by for over 100 years, inspired by the only 2 documents everyone has agreed to live by. So when an Idaho legislator signs our pledge, inviting voters to publicly hold them accountable, that's what we call political integrity. The pledge restores trust and honesty between voters and their legislators. It means protecting our shared values and ensuring your voice is heard in Boise. And that is priceless. Thank your legislator for having the political courage to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho Pledge. And if they haven't, it's time to ask why.
I'm sure everybody in here, like me, has gotten tons and tons of emails on this from library users, librarians. Holy smokes, Ketchum is emailing me all the time, Bonneville. So let's start, and we've heard about the small libraries, which is going to be, especially tough for them because now you have an unfunded mandate to move to a different area. It's like, well, it was over here, now it's there. What are they going to do? And well, ours is one of the biggest. Over in Nampa, District 13. We're the 3rd largest city, depending on the day, whether you like it or not, we are. So I got the receipts basically from them, and I want you to think about this in another aspect. Think about your Second Amendment rights. You're like, what? Wait, where's Kenny going? Here's where I'm going. Every time across the country, you always hear about the one. Nobody knew where Sandy Hook was, unless you hear about that one. That's what's happening here, like we see with our guns. And we know it's not the guns that are the problem. And these books are not being handed to kids. Sheriff from Kootenai County, he said, my gosh, look at this. Others may be like, what are you looking at? That's why it's the public. That's why they have some of these common tests. So they have review. You've got maybe the possibility of overzealous parents, people that are looking at taking advantage of that. I mean, eventually, pretty soon, you've got the insurance companies deciding your book policy. And we just talked about this a bit ago. I'm old enough to remember an hour ago. And we don't need this overreach. We don't need a nanny state to solve what, at least in one of the biggest in the state, and by and large, by the librarians that you've all been talking to, is not an issue. You remember last year, Meridian nearly lost, and Meridian's bigger than us, even though I hate to admit it. But Meridian, we have individual rights, and we talked about it earlier as well. People fought for those rights. We had the greatest generation. We had a generation of young men that stormed the beaches of Normandy. Chaos. And let me tell you about chaos. And it's, I wish it were mine, but to quote Camels on the Horizon, which many of you have read, seen, bad times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men, and weak men create chaos. It's like getting hung by a new rope. Like, well, it wasn't as bad as it was. It's still bad. That's what I know. I think...
Mr. Speaker, I object. I think at this point in time we're just filibustering, we're just talking about complete nonsense, going to Normandy and everything else. At some point in time we got to get back to the bill.
The good gentleman is just getting back to the bill right now. I'm
yeah,
sure.
Just getting back to it. Because they had those, you had people that fought for individual liberties.
That's funny stuff.
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. That was funny. And I know he's trying to be sincere, I think, but that filibuster yesterday was incredible. I mean, it was really only, 11, 12 minutes long, but he raises some arguments that, as we move along here, he raises some arguments that got his seatmate, Representative Brent Crane, from the same district there in Nampa, District 13, and Brent Crane took issue with a lot of Representative Roten's arguments there. So let's. This is where the fireworks happen. So let's listen to Representative Brent Crane.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To debate in favor of the bill.
Gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and members of the body. I believe this is now the third year that we have dealt with this issue. We started out with a piece of legislation that simply wanted to remove an exemption that is in state statute with regards to the obscenity laws. If any member of this body were to hand a minor child a piece of material that violates Section 1814, you're going to go to jail for a year, except a librarian. That was the first legislation that passed this body. Then we had the legislation last year, and now we have this legislation before us. I can tell you, if this doesn't pass, we're going back to that bill. This issue is going to get solved one way or the other. You better pick which one you like. To sit there and say that this does not exist in Idaho libraries is patently false. If it doesn't, you have nothing to be afraid of. But to the good gentleman from District 13, we don't represent Sun Valley. We don't represent Ketchum. We represent Nampa, specifically District 13 in Nampa. And I have a constituent who videoed...
Mr. Speaker, come on.
Good gentleman from 13.
And I had my receipts.
You what?
From Nampa. I've got the numbers from Nampa. And yeah, mine was illustration that we make this decision for the whole state. I don't know.
It's okay, good gentleman. We talked about Normandy too. I get it. So be careful, good gentleman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to help the good gentleman from 13 out, I don't represent Sun Valley. I am elected by the citizens of Nampa, 45,000 of them, to represent their position on a piece of legislation, irrespective of what Sun Valley thinks. They have a fine representative or two that's representing them and their position on the issue. And that's the way our founders intended this to be. But the good gentleman from District 13 and I have an individual in our district that after last year the bill died, videoed her 15-year-old daughter checking out material that would violate Section 1815.14. It is happening in the state of Idaho's third largest city in Idaho. So to sit here and say it's not happening, to sit it through 3 years of hearings and see what's happening and have parents come and demand action, we're going to do something. I think this is a good bill. Is it perfect? No. No bill that passes here is perfect. We took the fine from $2,500 last year down to $250, trying to say to people, we're not trying to fine you. Just relocate the stinking book. That's all you got to do. If there's a question about the book, why are we fighting so hard to put obscene material in front of our children? Why?
Mr. Speaker,
Good lady from 6.
I object to the tone, and we're always getting called on impugning, and I feel that there's a lot of impugning going on in this.
Good lady, I kind of let it get away because there was impugning on the other side earlier. So I would encourage everybody to kind of tone it down, but also let's continue with the debate knowing what the concerns are. Gentleman 13.
Mr. Speaker, would you put us at ease?
House be at ease.
And like that, they took their arguments behind closed doors or outside of the cameras, at least, so we don't know what happened during the at ease moment. At least, on camera here, there's speculation and stories that go around, but I won't be doing that here. I mean, come on, folks, come on. It's simple, right? I mean, this has been the argument for 3 years right now, and he's absolutely right. When he says, why are there so many people fighting to put obscene material in front of children? I mean, that's what it looks like. Perception is reality, they say. And I'll say that too here. All right. They went at ease. We don't have time to play the rest of these clips here because I want to move on to the next bill that was up. But when they came back from at ease, they continued some more debate. Representative Jaron Crane, the brother of Brent Crane, closed out the debate, really brought it home. And then, I don't know if we have the graphic of that vote total, but it passed. Here's the vote happening as we captured it. 47-23. 47-23, you had all Democrats voting against this bill. And you had a few of the Republicans, 10 or 12 or so, voting with them. And so you can see, can we go full screen there real quick and see, the folks that stood up, McCann, Handy, Petsky, Roten, Yamamoto, all there voting against this bill, which is interesting because a lot of them, I won't say a lot of them, some of them actually voted for the original bill 666 2 or 3 years ago, and now which was even harsher. It was a harsher bill, but now here they are voting against this one. Anyway, the fight's not over. Now the bill goes over to the Senate, and we saw what happened to the last library bill over there, losing by 1 vote. Should this happen again, you would think that maybe it will win by 1 vote, but you never know. So it heads over to the Senate side for round 2 of this battle. Okay, let's move on. What was what did we have? This bill number here was House Bill 668. We played the entire hearing of House Bill 668 that happened in committee. This is the public funds, stopping public funds from being used for sex change operations. And we had this, we played the entire hearing. So we saw a lot of the same characters show up and offer their testimony, offer their debate on this as it was sitting in the House. Well, it passed the House, and now the bill is in front of the Senate State Affairs Committee. Representative Julian Young was presenting the bill, and we're not going to play a lot of stuff here, but during the question and answer period, Democrat Senator Melissa Wintrow had a very specific, particular comment or question for Representative Young, dealing with whether or not we should be offering public assistance for these types of treatments. And if we do outlaw it, will it affect other types of treatments? And so let's watch this exchange.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative Young. Couple questions. First, just for clarification, and I know Representative Skog is gone, so maybe if you can't answer it, it's okay, but he mentioned the issue with prisons. I'm not sure about the amounts of money, but it's my understanding that those kinds of treatments are covered under the 8th Amendment and not Medicaid. Is that true?
Representative Young?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Wintrow, I can't speak to that.
Okay, that's
I'm
an
sorry.
attorney one. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Wintrow.
And Representative Young. So the other question I have is under 1557, the Affordable Care Act, it basically says you can't discriminate on medical treatment based on sex, gender. It actually includes sexual orientation, gender identity, all those things. We know we have a current court case from the law that was passed, and it's going all the way to the Supreme Court. The district judge has stayed that law, so people in the state are getting gender-affirming care. My question is, what is the implication of passing or trying to pass a law when we're already strung up in court? We've already heard that's probably constitutionally questionable. What is going to potentially happen if we do pass this?
Representative Young.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Wintrow, I think that we can't anticipate whether the final decision will be that it's constitutionally questionable or not. I think that's a statement that is up to somebody's opinion. However, I would like to point out that if a person's class is defined by the medical treatment that they seek, it would be unconstitutional and discriminatory for anybody to not provide any treatment to someone. And yet, in our system, we do make decisions about what's covered and what's provided and what's not provided. And we also make decisions about when we provide those treatments based on diagnoses. And that's just a normal part of our system.
One more question.
Senator Wintrow.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it looks like there's a lot of people to testify. Representative Young, when I was looking at the language of the bill and looking at medical treatment, it's medical intervention, which it seems kind of broad. I don't see a definition. And then I see the surgical, but couple questions about that. So as it stands, I was doing research for another bill, and I discovered that erectile dysfunction, you can actually have, Medicare covers penile implants for erectile dysfunction. And so I would say that would be directly related to gender-affirming care for men, virility, those kind of things. And so I got to thinking, would these kind of things be implicated as well?
Representative Young.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Wintrow, that seems to me like it would not fall under this legislation because this legislation is specifically speaking to treatments that are provided for the purpose of affirming an individual's perception of an individual's sex in a way that is inconsistent with the individual's biological sex.
Are you good?
I'll hold some more questions. Thank you, Representative.
Are you good? Yeah, we're good. We're good. Thanks. Representative Young, she's on fire this session, and she's so poised. She seems to always have the right angle and the right temperament and the right perfect answer to any of these questions that are lobbed at her. Okay, so as this, then there was a ton of testimony from a lot of folks that we saw before, as I mentioned. But when it came down to the vote to see if this thing would pass committee, the chairman, Senator Guthrie, Republican, he had a few words before they held the vote. And he seemed to latch on to a few arguments on why he would be voting the way he did. So let's watch that clip.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Just a couple comments I'd offer. This is one of those times when I've actually been convinced by the testimony, and I'm going to vote against the bill. I do worry about the legal cases and the discrimination piece. And I worry about compromising some health care for our state employees, and I do concur that if something isn't treated today, it could result in higher cost treatments tomorrow. So just offer that as my brief comments, and I'll not be able to support the motion. Don't see any other. Roll call has been requested. Madam Secretary, would you call the roll?
Senator Winder.
Aye.
Senator Anthon.
Aye.
Senator Taves.
Aye.
Senator Wintrow.
Nay.
Senator Ruckty.
Nay.
Is Senator Guthrie?
Nay. You skipped him again.
Oh, sorry. Senator Burnt.
Aye.
4.
Motion carries 4-3. Committee, is there anything else? Not saying anything. We're adjourned.
All right. Well, that motion carried, and the motion was to send the bill on to the floor. So another hurdle for that bill, as it has passed committee. Senator Guthrie voting with the Democrats on the nay side, as this bill makes its way to the floor for a full debate with the senators there. So we'll obviously be keeping tabs on that one. And I thank you for sticking with us today as we go through all of the activities that are happening here in Boise. I am still here in Boise. This is my last day here. I will be traveling back, and we'll be back in the studio tomorrow. One of the things that our organization sent out this morning was another reminder that House Bill 415 is still in that committee that we just watched. It is sitting in the drawer there at the committee. This would allow enhanced teachers and staff that have an enhanced carry permit to put to wear firearms on campus. And so we put a call out there. Where's the bill? Where's the bill? House Bill 415. And you can call that number there. That is that committee's number that we just watched. There is their email address. And we want you to, if you're passionate about this particular topic, to be kind and respectful as you ask them to bring out House Bill 415, which passed overwhelmingly in the House, to make it have a full hearing in that Senate State Affairs Committee. They tried to do a replacement bill because they thought that this bill was too. It was too good. I don't know else to say it. It's too good. And they wanted to substitute it with something that was terrible. And they watered it down. They waterboarded House Bill 415 with a bill that failed to pass committee yesterday. So now this bill is still there. They can bring it up and have a full hearing. So make your voices heard. That's what we're always encouraging folks to do here on Idaho Signal. Cut through the noise, get right to the signal, and make sure that we are staying engaged and involved. We're going to have an early early exit today. And I ask you to go visit idahosignal.com where you can give us your support, send us some messages. It's really heartwarming, and it gives us motivation to keep going when we hear from you folks out there, leaving comments, especially out there on Rumble and Facebook, YouTube, and over on X. Share the clips, subscribe to those channels. Get folks involved. I have had people come up to me and say, "Hey, are you? I recognize you," which is weird. But they say, I was just telling my friends that they should watch Idaho Signal. So I appreciate all that, and I hope it's really having an impact, especially keeping you informed about what's going on, because I know you folks are busy. You cannot. There's no way to watch. I mean, we can't even watch all this stuff. I mean, there's multiple committees happening all the time. The House and Senate are happening at the same time, and it's hard to keep track of everything that's going on. So we try and hopefully highlight the big points for you throughout the week here, and we really appreciate you. We really appreciate you sharing our content and making sure that you are staying involved. That's the most important thing. Is at some point you're going to memorize these numbers. You're going to memorize how these emails work, and you're going to have them on speed dial and bookmarked to contact your legislature and let them know what they're doing, because you got representatives in there. Jaron Crane, at one point in his argument on that library bill, had mentioned that he's trying to pass a bill that's for the people. You got so many people coming in here with bills that are given to them from agencies, from other people. It's and trying to do the business of corporations or agencies, but this is a bill for the people. Both of these bills, these are bills for the people. And they have such a hard time getting through the system. It's incredible, and you're witnessing it right here. So once again, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you live back here tomorrow. Take care.
This bill, I think, it puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.